Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and those in between, they've done it. Sonic Team finally made a game that actually feels like it had a 5-year development cycle again. The first proper 3D Sonic game since Generations. The first proper 3D game with a story since Unleashed. And it's actually good. It's fun. It's not bland, boring hallways with voice acting that make me want to sleep in a ditch. I'm going to be completely real. I had no faith in Frontiers from the initial announcement. An open world Sonic game with the Forces engine? No thanks. But here we are, November 2022, and it's good. It's actually really, really good. Does it have issues? Oh, sure. But it's issues that can be entirely ignored or blamed on something else. I don't think I can accurately describe the sense of relief I felt when I got through the first island and went, oh my god, there's more and I can't wait. And it's not 2 hours long. There's a story that is steeped in lore and continuity. You can tell Ian Flynn really managed to get away with changing up the canon a bit. There's some name drops that I won't spoil, but if you like those characters, you'll be happy. It's like all of the complaints most people had for the last 10 years actually got answered with Sonic Team taking a chance on taking a new route for Sonic. I kinda want to keep on gushing. So what I'm gonna do is talk about the stuff I disliked or could be improved on, and then just get straight back to positivity. So, starting this video off, let's talk about the missers of Frontiers. So, before we get to more freaking out about how we actually got a good 3D Sonic game in the year of our Lord and Savior, Hiroshi 2022, there's some caveats. But let's face it, even the most perfect product has flaws depending on the person. So, big thing first, the pop-in. For a game that's coming out on a current generation console, this pop-in is horrendous. Even in cutscenes, rings and rails will just appear and disappear based on the camera position, and for the rings, based on the frame of animation. Now, this I understand is an issue because they developed this for the Switch as well, and Frontiers, while not the prettiest or graphically intensive game, it is a Sonic game, meaning that it requires stuff to be rendered at high speeds. And that's sadly an issue with modern Sonic Team. The Hedgehog engine they had developed back in 2008 for Unleashed was made with this in mind. But if rumors and hearsay are to be believed, nobody at Sonic Team, except for the guy who made it, knew how to use it. And the new one they made for Forces is objectively not as good. And it shows. Unleashed continues to this day, to its own detriment even, to be the most graphically stunning Sonic game, and comparing how well stuff was rendered in real time for a PS3 360 game to what Frontiers is going on, it's a shame, especially when easier to develop with tools like Unreal Engine 5 or 4 could probably do what the original Hedgehog engine could without needing a 300-page book on how it works. Just a quick editor's note, I don't actually know if Unreal Engine 5 is as capable as the original Hedgehog engine was of rendering stuff at high speed. I'm just assuming that like 14 years later, technology would have caught up. Anyway, and that leads me into the open zone itself. The Starfall Islands are by no means empty, but nothing about them screams Sonic. Sure, you have rails, but where are the loops? Where are the naturally occurring floating platforms? I understand that they went with an aesthetic, one of a depressive look into a lost civilization. But the previous times we've done this, the areas were filled with weird nature that literally looped into itself. Mind you, it's not bad for what it is, but compare the Starfall Islands with South or Westside Island, both islands that have been long since abandoned by the civilizations that lived on them, it's a little weird. It's not like they couldn't have gone hard on those aesthetics while also having 3D printed loops among the ruins. And then we get to what is, in my opinion, the worst part of the game, the cyber stages. Now, on the surface, yes, 3 out of the 4 tile sets for these are directly ripped, and that annoys me greatly. It's been 10 years since Generations, and we only have a handful of new Sonic stages that actually stick out, and all of them are from a 2D game not made by Sonic Team. I get that nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and that Green Hill Zone is a necessity in having nostalgia bait, but come on, if we're gonna have returning locales, can we do something new? Starlight, Hydro City, I'll take Hilltop for Green Hill but blue. Just something different. I'll get into it more later in the video, but I've said it once and I'll say it again. I'm so goddamn sick of Green Hill, Chemical Plant, and Sky Sanctuary. And, of course, to top off the returning areas, they also reused level design from previous Sonic games, primarily Unleashed, Generations, and Sonic Adventure 2. Now, I couldn't recognize a few of them, so there might be an original one or two in there, but most of them had me going, oh, right, it's X from Y. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit later because there is something positive about it, but man, so much reliance on previous works is just so lame after the last 10 years. I remember when I was a little baby 14-year-old boy in 2013, looking forward to whatever Sonic team would come out with after Lost World. The idea of the PS4 finally giving us a look at a game that looked like Unleashed, built off of Generations with new locales and zones to explore. And instead, we got 5 new 2D zones and such classics like City, Cylinder Green Hill, and Snow Plant. Anyway, that's literally all the issues I have. I ran into exactly one glitch in Frontiers that I couldn't just replicate. I accidentally clipped into one of the Eggman areas in the 3rd island. A quick reload fixed it, but that was absolutely all of it. And the best part of my issues is that they can be fixed easily. And we'll get there if you haven't noticed the title yet. So, negativity out of the way, let's talk about the good parts. And believe me, there's a lot I want to talk about, from the game itself to the story and the character interactions. Just a quick spoiler warning, because I'm going to start spoiling the shit out of the game here. So, as if a direct response to the last 10 years of stories that were basically just the average Saturday morning cartoon of hero versus villain, we get some of the best characterization that any of the characters have gotten in the last 14 plus years. The characters have successfully been unflanderized and actually have somewhat of a depth to them again. Plus some great voice work from everybody around really cements the characters as having history with each other and having grown together. All 3 of Sonic's friends have a bit of a crisis when seeing the Cocos go through their motions, with Tails being a direct reference and even call out to his characterization in the past. Tails unironically full-on says, well then, I'm wildly inconsistent, when Sonic mentions that he's been capable of great things on his own without Sonic by his side.
Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Hey, who was it who stopped Eggman from blowing up Station Square, huh? And who broke me out of prison, or saved me from the Deadly Six's trap?
Then I'm wildly inconsistent.
I could literally hear Ian Flynn grinning as he typed that script out, and for good reason. There was a weird sense of vindication when Tails actively pointed out his inconsistency between games. I, of course, understand that for somebody who doesn't agree with that, or even was unaware of Tails' inconsistency, would find it a weird interaction, but it was hopefully a necessary step in Tails' future stories. But the real stars of the show are Sonic and Eggman. Sonic finally has evolved from the caricature that he was for the last 10 years of what I can really only describe as somebody trying way too hard to be cool. He's more down to earth and level-headed, while still sticking to his usual cockiness when needed. Roger's more calm and deeper voice absolutely sells Sonic in this. Sonic, around his friends, actively drops his cocky shtick for a second to interact with them while they're stuck in cyberspace, having genuine conversations with them that amount to more than, "Sonic, I'm sad." "It's okay, friend number 3, we're gonna be alright." "Wow, I'm cured, Sonic, thanks." Sonic is actually put through the ringer, being manipulated from the moment he arrives out of cyberspace on the island by a mysterious voice. Sonic, for the first time in a while, actually feels mortal. There's been an issue of Sonic basically being God in the last few years. Even in the comics, which were infinitely written better than the games were previously, Sonic presumed dead and tortured for 6 months in space. He's still upbeat and cocky without any active damage or even downsides. And as soon as he steps back in the fray, the world starts being saved, despite the fact that all of his friends are just as, if not more so capable than Sonic of saving the world. Sonic disappears with amnesia for a bit, and Eggman crashes a party. Eggman is winning the fight until Sonic conveniently shows up and hits Eggman 3 times. Now, you might ask why I'm bringing the comics up, because I guess they're canon now? Yeah, so Sega of America confirmed that the free Comic Book Day 2022 Sonic story was a prequel to Frontiers. Hell, Tangle gets referenced in the game. meaning that the implication is that this happens after the Metal Virus saga, which, hey, I don't mind. Tangle is a great and fun character, and if the chance is there for her to get her own playstyle, she will be a great addition to Sonic's roster. Same with Whisper, or Surge, and Kit, you know? Get those in there. Eggman actually goes through a bit of a new character arc. We see a softer, more gentle side of Eggman that we haven't actually seen in, well, basically 20 years. The AI turned physical being Sage basically becomes his surrogate daughter throughout the game, and instead of rejecting it, Eggman actively encourages it. At no point does Sage get told to stop fantasizing about being a family with Eggman as her father. He actively encourages Sage and compliments her when she does something well. Hell, Eggman actually wonders if she has a preferred pronoun in one of the egg notes she can get while fishing with the totally not overused and unfunny meme himself.
Sage has been crucial to my survival here in cyberspace. Early warnings of hostile entities, guiding me past firewalls, keeping me updated on progress in the real world. She's the best. It's a program. An adorable program, a very personable program. I wonder if she has a preference.
Eggman might be evil, but he's still respectful of pronouns. It's just so fucking nice to see Eggman actually as, well, a human being after the last few years of, aha, I am evil and wacky wahoo eggs, man. Even cementing the old idea that Eggman is a nickname Sonic gave him back pre-Sonic 1 and he ran with it. Taking it in stride, refusing to do the same with Baldy McNosehair, which, honestly, I can't blame him for that one. And, of course, then there's Sage herself. Instead of Eggman taking center stage as the villain, instead, being confined to cyberspace before the events of the game, Sage is Eggman's newest AI, and after being connected to cyberspace, she takes up a physical body to help protect Eggman from the threats of cyberspace. She's a breath of fresh air as far as Eggman minions go. Instead of just being another episode of Orbot and Cubot fucking about and finding out, or Eggman being betrayed, Sage is calculating and properly kind-hearted, wanting to take care of her creator and, well, her father. Sage even manages to convince Eggman to join up with Sonic to deal with the threat at hand just so everybody can survive. She watches Sonic travel through the islands and instead of outright being antagonistic, while she does try and stop Sonic, she constantly wonders if it wouldn't be smarter to work together with him, and ultimately does, and works together with Sonic to deal with what might be the largest threat he has actually ever faced. So, in true Sonic fashion, the mysterious main villain of the game is, well, the Void itself. And it's not even really tangible. It takes the form of the moon in the final boss. The very concept of the Void apparently was what caused the Ancients to flee from their original planet, settle on Earth, and subsequently die out when they were followed by it. It's a much more, I guess, abstract final boss. Instead of a god of destruction or the core of the very planet itself, it's more of an outside alien force, and I'm kind of all for it. And that leads me into the Ancients. Are they water beings? Chaos? Oh my god, what? What? I don't think you can fully understand the jaw drop I had when I first saw what the Ancients actually looked like. A bunch of lanky water beings that arrived on Earth after being chased by the Void from their home planet, bringing with them the Chaos Emeralds. Now, not everything is explained yet, obviously. The Master Emerald's role in all of this goes pretty much unmentioned. How Chaos even came into existence after the death of the Ancients, the Chow, or even how the Babylonians and Echidnas became aware of the power of the Emeralds, and for that matter, how Gaia and the Gaia temples relate to the Emeralds. Now, there's already some theory crafting going on, like how the Cocos seem to be the memories of the Ancients, while the Chow are actually like the I guess, evolved, almost mutated versions of the survivors, and Chaos eventually, you know, we know that he's a mutated Chow, so maybe that's why he's like an ancient, but more spooky. And then there's the Master Emerald, who just existed on Earth, and I mean, they can always explain that. I mean, I wasn't expecting lore of the Chaos Emeralds to drop out of nowhere, but, you know. But the sudden drop of the origin of the Chaos Emeralds is greatly appreciated, but if I had a nickel for every alien race that arrived on Earth and subsequently got destroyed by the Emeralds, well, I'd have 3 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's still weird that it keeps happening. But yeah, lore. Sonic finally takes a chance at actually explaining its world building again, coming right hot off the heels of the one world canon being finally, well, canon, and the classic timeline no longer being its own dimension. If you couldn't tell, the story itself is pretty damn good. It's nothing mind-blowing, but for a first return to actual serious storytelling in games, it's pretty great. You could argue that Forces was the first return, but there's a big difference between storytelling with a serious tone and storytelling with a serious setting. Forces had a serious setting, but in no way did they actually manage to be serious with the tone for more than the opening. Frontiers, however, actually manages to hit it out of the park with the tone, and I gotta thank Ian Flynn and all the writers for writing a great-ass story that stands out from the Sonic stories of the, well, last 12 years. Alright, so, the meat and potatoes of Frontiers. The one thing that had me scared from the get-go, and I'm happy to say it's better than expected. The open zone system is interesting. Instead of a big old open world like other games of the style, the game is split into 5 islands. 4 islands of actual gameplay, while there's an in-between island purely for story. The 4 islands themselves are decently sized and packed with mini-challenges. As expected of an open area Sonic game, at no point does traversing an island feel like a chore as Sonic. At no point did I go, man, I could really use a quick travel option. Which there of course is, but rushing through the areas and zooming past stuff was a joy every single time I did it. Although there is a tiny issue by the 3rd island with how it's set up. I spent about an hour trying to figure out how to exactly get to an objective. The game in its freedom does suffer in some cases from having no clue how to get somewhere. Turned out I was just overlooking a giant launch pad, which, you know, shame on me. I can respect Sonic Team for making traversal not entirely a guided experience. However, in true modern Sonic fashion, there are dash pads and springs that propel you without any control. And to its dismay, by the time you get to the 3rd island, the over-reliance on 2D challenges start becoming annoying when you accidentally hit a dash pad and get locked into 2D until you manage to jump out. But flip side, each time you unlock a part of the map, rails that go all over the island appear, allowing you to travel quickly to previously visited locations. Alongside that, you can fish for quick travel maps to the Elder Coco and Hermit Coco, who I'll get into in a second. When you finish each map challenge on the island, you also unlock the ability to teleport to any cyberstage entrance regardless of whether or not you've gotten all the challenges done on that specific stage. So, for each island, you have 3 traversal options. Either you sprint over there, you grind over there, or you teleport to the nearest teleport, which, hey, is pretty good. The options there are useful if you're ever not in the mood to run. And in the surprise twist, they let you customize Sonic's controls. With 2 presets from the get-go, I really only use the high action option because, well, if you can't tell, I'm a professional Sonic player. But Sonic absolutely felt like a dream for the open area zone. He turned perfectly at full speed, and slowing down, I didn't feel out of control at all. The only times I felt a bit slippery was when jumping, but I never really launched myself into the abyss or had trouble with platforming. The boost returns. However, instead of turning you into the unstoppable force, it no longer destroys enemies on impact. Instead, if you boost into an enemy, you get knocked on your ass. A change I actually kind of appreciate. Not that I ever really disliked boosting through enemies, but it did make enemies a little redundant and just boost filler, which now recharges by itself as a stamina bar, so, yeah, you know, that's pretty cool. Sonic's homing attack kinda sucks here though. If you're targeting anything but balloons, Sonic will hit the enemy and launch himself directly into the air, taking away any momentum you had prior and even locking you into place before being able to hit the next enemy. This isn't the case when hitting balloons, but it's a far cry from how the homing attack worked in Generations. It might be stemming from how the homing attack is directly tied to the melee combat in here, but when most of the actions from the open zone are turned off for cyberstage, like the combat, they could have adjusted the homing attack for that. Sonic controls like ass in Cyberstage. It's very weird how fluent and good he feels in the open zone, but feels like you're playing through mud in Cyberstage. No drift, except for one weird gimmick area, and it's not very good. You can sadly immediately tell this is the Forces control scheme the most when you hit the Cyberstages. About as clunky as it was back then. Nothing that can't be fixed with future games, but we'll get there. And of course, combat. We haven't had proper punches and kicks in a while in a Sonic game, and it's not bad. Basically baby's first action game control scheme. Even comes with a built-in just mash X and let the game do fancy for you. It's nothing too bad. It's a far cry from stylish combat like DMC, but I suppose that's not really the point of this. But the combat itself feels fine, and at no point did I ever really get annoyed with hitting an enemy. Maybe it's because I leveled Sonic's strength in Frontiers' RPG-esque level up system, but at no point did I really feel underpowered throughout the adventure. The ring level up is absolutely useless though. At no point did I ever need more than the base 400 cap you get at the start, but the defense, strength, and speed upgrades came in handy for traversal and combat. Also, I completely forgot to write this down, so here's a quick overview. You level up Sonic via the Hermit Cocoa by finding like seeds of power and seeds of defense, which will, increase your strength and power. And all throughout the map, you can find these little Cocos, and you can hand them into the Elder Coco, who will then very slowly level up your either rig cap or speed one level at a time. And that is so annoying when you're trying to go fast and you can't just hit a slider like, oh yeah, hand in this and then do that, but it can fix that for a future game. And then there's the bosses. I'm gonna be 100% honest. I had completely given up on Sonic Team being able to make 3D bosses that weren't just hallways. But here we are. Each mini-boss at Frontiers requires its own way of dealing with it, be it grinding on rails to get him to open up, or running up its stupid tower face and stomping it. And god, they're all great. At no point did I actively want to avoid fighting a mini-boss because they're just so much fun. The Sumo and Guardian bosses come to mind for fun gimmicks. They don't overstay their welcome and reward you with stuff that helps you progress. I literally couldn't have asked for better. And then there's the big boys. You annoyed by the fact that we haven't had a boss fight the size of Tokyo versus Supersonic with some rock blaring through it? Well, here, have 4 of them. Supersonic is an island-only final boss fight, again akin to the adventure games, and sadly, you don't unlock Supersonic as a playable form, nor are you capable of replaying Titans, save for the final one. Not that I mind not being able to play a Supersonic, but I really would have liked to be able to redo the Titans. Supersonic himself, with the short time you play him, is a great extension of Sonic's normal combat. Supersonic upgrades alongside the normal skill set, meaning you unlock new moves for Supersonic at the same time as Sonic. Which might seem like an obvious thing, but they could have easily pre-unlocked all skills or even have locked some for Supersonic only. Each Titan also has a gimmick for using the side loop, ranging from chaining them up to a giant fucking spear through it. It takes a little practice to be able to properly use the side loop on those massive bosses though. But with 3 separate metal tracks blaring through the first 3 Titans, and the main theme playing through the final, at no point do you run out of oh my god moments in Sonic Frontiers. I don't think I would have expected full-blown Perfect Chaos-esque bosses again, but hey, here we are. I get 4 of them, and goddammit do I love it. And before I forget, this game's new Sonic gimmick, the side loop. Or the spin cycle if you're one of the OGs. It's a pretty fun gimmick. If you're ever low on rings or can't figure out a puzzle, the side loop is absolutely great. It goes hand in hand with Sonic speed and works for both exploration and combat. If they wanted to keep this in a potential sequel, I wouldn't really mind at all. Overall, Sonic in this game feels as well as he could in an open world setting. Aside from the disappointing cyber stages, the actual meat and potatoes of the game never really overstay their welcome. The puzzles and stuff are absolutely piss easy and require little to no effort on your part. Think of Sonic Frontiers as a nice dinner at a restaurant. The open zone, the combat, and leveling up is the main dish. It tastes great, and yeah, maybe a little over/undercooked even if you ask for medium or well done, but literally nothing to complain about. Fishing, side stories, and even exploring the islands are the fries or whatever side dish you get with it, like rice, complementing the main dish nicely and fills you up. The cyber stages are the shitty little side salad you get complimentary with underneath the main dish that you can just ignore if you want to. Like, yeah, sure, maybe it's good to get some greens in there if you're having a steak dinner, bite into some tomato, but ultimately it doesn't really matter and it'll end up in the trash at the back of the restaurant. Not to mention, if you don't feel like grinding out portal gears, keys, or even character tokens, you can just go fish. And it's a pretty fun minigame. Fish up some random junk, get some cute tidbits, you can even fish up Sally herself. And if you ever run out of tokens to fish, Sonic Team put in a system where if you kill enough enemies and bosses on an island, they all respawn with a meteor shower and you can start making mad bank on fishing coins due to the meteorite shards that are literally everywhere. Sadly, there's more shards that spawn than there is time for them to actually go through the roulette, which takes a bit to get through. But a few roulettes here and there and you'll have more coins than you know what to do with. I think Sonic Frontiers is the first game in 12 years that actually feels like Sonic's been set in motion again. The passion can be felt, and in true Sonic fashion, it's a great first attempt. If you're at all curious about trying a 3D game, normally I would recommend Generations. However, as Frontiers might have become the best first-timers 3D Sonic game to play, I'd recommend both. Generations for good traditional modern and classic gameplay, Frontiers for a taste of what could be to come in the future, and of course I would recommend playing Sonic Mania because it's Sonic Mania. However, that leads me to the second point of this sort of review. We're now at an impasse we haven't been since 2013. Sonic Team has a great groundwork, and if they aren't stupid, that's a big if, the next big budget Sonic game could be one of the best. Now, you might be asking how, and I'm glad you asked. Here's how Sonic Team can take a hold of the momentum and not fuck it up, because we've seen what happens when Sonic Team backtracks. It leads to forces. So, much like in 2008 and 2013, we're now standing at a crossroads for Sonic Team. Either they buckle down and take a look at what works and what doesn't, or they backtrack into making a boost game again. And God, I hope we don't repeat what happened with Lost World. Lost World, while not perfect, introduced some new ideas to the franchise, and had they been expanded on, specifically the parkour system, I think the 25th anniversary game would have been miles better. But for some reason, Sonic Team got scared and made a cookie-cutter color-style boost game. So this time, let's repeat what happened with Unleashed. Let's cut out all the fat, the unnecessary, and build upon what works and go from there. So, here are some of my ideas on what Sonic Team can do to make sure that the next Sonic game goes from a 7 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. Frontiers is great and fun, but we can do better. Sonic Team can do better. So let's pretend for a second I'm the guy in charge of deciding what goes and what stays for the next game. Let's pretend we're at Sonic Team's office and we're deciding what to do next. The open zone is fine as it is right now, but for the next one, go full hog with the Sonic aesthetic. Take inspiration from some 3D fan games and go from there. Instead of the 3D printing aesthetic, let there be naturally occurring loops. Have challenges and map reveals do stupid stuff like crumble the ruins that conveniently become a route, or just having stuff teleported in by the emeralds if you're out of ideas. The zones themselves should be out there. Arguably, the last time Sonic Team themselves made brand new tile sets that were original and stood out against the other games was colors. So let's go with that design idea. Do some wacky ass stuff. Like, you can have the verse zone be the general hills if you want, but have a second level to that specific island that's just underwater ruins akin to Labyrinth on South Island. But then from there, just have fun with it. Have a zone designed after Cyber Egypt, or a giant floating city with the aesthetic of 1990s New York with subway carts running all over it. There is a lot you can do to make each open zone feel Sonic-y and out there. Like, really, just have fun with it. Sonic is known for having area designs that's out there. Why limit yourself to stuff like desert and volcano? Even if the next game was set on an island again, the Sonic franchise is known for having islands with wildly varying locales and ideas. You can be in the hills, blink, and suddenly be surrounded by lava. Go heavy into the aesthetic, make it an interconnected area that feels alive. Let me travel through an underground mine filled with ghosts, pop my head above ground and see a bunch of ruins that reach into the sky. Let me run through the hills and suddenly find myself in a modern metropolis. As for the cyber stages, just get rid of them. Go full on the open zone idea and stop leaning on a nearly 20-year-old formula you haven't been able to properly replicate for 10. The mini challenges around the zone should be the way to progress the story, and the return to boost style stages should not be used as a crutch anymore. However, if you desperately need those, get rid of returning stages. No Green Hill, no Chemical Plant, no Sky Sanctuary. If the open zones themselves are already fun new aesthetics, then use those tile sets. Stop falling back on the classic games and for once let modern Sonic have his aesthetic of his own again. It's not nostalgia if it's the norm, and when Green Hill Zone keeps coming back as a returning stage, it's not even nostalgia pandering anymore, it's just stupid. Or again, if you so desperately need returning stages to bring in people who haven't played since the 90s, just don't use the generation style sets again. You have such a large history of varied stages, use them. I'd kill to see Starlight in 3D, or Hydro City, or fucking anything that isn't the 9 stages from Generations. And no reliance on previous level layouts. The open zones themselves show you're perfectly capable of coming up with 3D platforming. Use that experience you have now to come up with fresh stages if you want traditional stages in the next game. And for that matter, one upside to the reused level design is that you now should have a feeling on what works and what doesn't. Let's take that and put it to good use. We saw what happened when a brand new team remade stages from the ground up and then created their own thing with Crash Bandicoot 4, and it was great, so I want to see Sonic Team do the same. Alright, here's one I know scares Sonic Team, but the open zone gameplay introduces the perfect opportunity to bring back multiple characters that aren't Sonic. Akin to Sonic Boom, heresy I know, allow the player to switch characters on the fly and use the classic design philosophy for each. Each character can play like Sonic, but slower, with their own gimmick. Bring back Tails, let him fly over challenges you don't feel like doing. Giant wall in the way, let me climb over it as Knuckles. Have specific routes for each character, have specific challenges for each character. Hell, if you don't want to take the time to develop playstyles that differ, bring back Shadow and Silver. When was the last time Silver was playable in a proper 3D game? People would eat that shit up. A game focusing on those three would be absolutely great and wouldn't require much tuning to each playstyle. Make Shadow's combat hit heavier, have Silver use levitation and ESP for specific stuff. Or, say fuck it and bring in new characters. You name drop Tangle, have Tangle and Whisper as playable characters. Tangle's tail would work perfectly as grappling hook style gameplay, and Whisper would give you an excuse to bring in the Wisp by having her have her little crew of homies. Just look at Sonic Roboblast 2. People have come up with great ideas on how those two should play. Don't be afraid to take inspiration. Your fans are passionate and you know that. You wouldn't include the drop dash if you didn't agree. Those are just some of my ideas. Other people will have different ideas, but I think everybody agrees that now is the time to buckle down and work on expanding what you have. You have a framework that works. Don't drop it. Build on it. You can genuinely have another generations on your hands if you listen to feedback and see what works and what doesn't. And I genuinely, really hope that Sonic Team takes that to heart. I really don't want a repeat of Forces where we wait for 5 years and get a mediocre budget title after some goodwill has returned to the franchise. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. Let's wrap. I think it's obvious how much I enjoyed Sonic Frontiers. I basically got everything I ever wanted on a baseline from Sonic Team. Actual 3D gameplay, a story that isn't thin as a candy wrapper, characters' interactions that aren't just one-note personality traits. Hell, goddammit, the game is just fun, and that's the best compliment I can give. Sonic Team has something special on their hands, and I hope that they look at the feedback and go from there. Modern Sonic can really be something special again if they work on it like they did with Frontiers. All I can hope for is that we don't get a repeat from 2017. Hell, I hope this game does the reverse and instead convinces Sega to give Sonic Team some new blood to help develop the next games. Or, even if they want to go back to the 2000s, hire new people to work on spin-offs, have a Team Heroes that works on main titles that take a bit to cook in the oven, and have a Team Dark to work on spin-offs. Make another Riders, make another Sonic R, hell, make a 2D game. Or fuck it, have the Like a Dragon crew work on a Knuckles spin-off where he goes around the world treasure hunting. Just don't spread the developers thin and have them run the risk of another 06 or needing to cut corners to make deadlines. Sonic Frontiers is honestly a fantastic Sonic game, and I'm really happy I can say that again after what feels like millennia. Sonic Team really managed to hit the nail on the head, and I can't explain how great that is. If you're at all interested in getting into the Sonic franchise or getting back into it, play Frontiers. Even if the story isn't your cup of tea, you'll still have a great time zooming across the islands and collecting the emeralds. And at the heart of it, that's what really matters. A good, fun time about a hedgehog running really fast and stopping a giant talking egg with his friends. And that is all I could ask for. Also, Sage for returning Egg Companion, you cowards, give Eggman his daughter. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing. And, of course, leaving that bell and hitting a comment, I don't know. Anyway, if you want to check any of my other videos, you can check them here, here, and here. Yeah, that's about it. Had a lot of fun making it. Song for Tears is pretty good.